Welcome to the Essence of the Soul.
A safe haven for all souls.
My name is Linda.
And my name is Paris, and welcome to our episode on pharmaceutical healthcare versus holistic health. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit more in depth what each of them are and kind of the differences and the different pros and cons between each of these. So a lot of you guys have been asking about holistic health and or holistic healing. Holistic health is a very interesting thing for me to talk about because I actually go to school for this, for my master's program. So I go to school for holistic health. It's called Holistic Health Studies at St. Kate's. And one thing that they taught me about the term of holistic health, and when we talk about holistic practices, we're actually talking about the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. And this is something that in the pharmaceutical world, we don't really engage too deeply into the mind, body, or spirit connection. And so a lot of us who are kind of shifting, gears and going towards more of a holistic approach, we're actually starting to get into understanding the deep root cause behind physical pain, or we talk about mental health issues. If we look at the pharmaceutical side, a lot of people will tell doctors their issues and things that are going on, but there's not really much happening. There's not a lot of alternatives or things that we're doing to help people. A lot of times what we do is, okay, so we take down the notes and then we kind of see, okay, here's a prescribed medication for you. It's a part of the healthcare system in general. It's kind of like our way to safety, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's not just like a coping mechanism, but it's also so that we have pain relief, right? So that a lot of things that we go through, whether we hurt ourselves or we sprained our ankle or whatever it is, that we just get a painkiller and that pain will slowly go away. Which at the same time, I do like to put a disclaimer. I won't say that, it does not help you. I know there are a lot of people out there where those things do help and they do prevent a lot of pain or sicknesses. However, I will say that when we talk about holistic health, we're actually talking about a lot of original medicine that, we have forgotten about in the past, because a lot of these things are things that have nothing to do with technology. They have nothing to do with being lab created. Because the thing about holistic health is it's so many different broad varieties of different types of healing modalities, medicines, plants. We talk about plants, right? So many different things that people use to heal themselves, right? And so that's the thing, is that we're bringing back old traditional ways of healing, old traditional medicines that a lot of people back then, like way back then, did not know how to open up a computer and look up all the different scientific things that, have to be put into a certain medication to make your foot feel better or something. A lot of people simply use their hands. They simply use plants. A lot of people, they had an inner knowing. And I'm actually doing research about this too. It's that inner knowing. It's the having knowledge acquisition. It's knowing that, okay, I don't know how I knew this, but I knew that I could use this plant. Our own ancestors, right, can heal just by putting herbs together. There's a lot of people out there who say, they could spit on somebody's pain and it would easily go away. They could put their hand on someone's pain and it would easily go away. It's certain things like that. It's like certain gifts. It's like originality. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's natural. At the end of the day, what holistic practices are is more of a natural approach. But we connect the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. So we don't just look at, oh, this is your pain, this is what caused it. What we do is we actually look at, why do you have pain, for example, in your back, right? But is there a reason behind this? So we go into a psychology type of structure where we're like, okay, let's go back to some of the traumas that you face. Let's go back to some of the things that may have hurt you in the past, because these types of things can be affecting your physical pain. I actually have a personal story about my back. That's why I said my back. And if you actually look up, if you have any pain at all, your finger, your back, your head, your foot, whatever it is, look it up and actually Google the spiritual meaning behind each of these physical pains. Because for me, when I had a lot of back pain, I wasn't really understanding where that was coming from. But it was during a time where I was going through so much relationship issues with a lot of people in general, and having to carry a huge load on my back from every single person's issue that I was absorbing. And for me, I had literal back pain where I couldn't even walk. Sometimes I would have like my heart would physically hurt a lot too. And so it was like my back, my heart, a lot of things that would happen. And so when I was looking up that spiritual meaning, it would tell me that. But the thing was that I actually scheduled a doctor's appointment. I went to the doctor. I asked the doctor, do I have scoliosis? Do I have an issue with my spine? Do I have something happening? Because there's so much pain and it's been happening for over 2 weeks now. It has not stopped and I can barely walk and I can barely sleep at night. And so the doctor touched my back and then was like, there's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, okay. So I had no idea what to do. And I was a few years younger, but I had actually saw my uncle, who is, if you guys watched our last episode, or a few episodes ago, we talked to Chandy, and Chandy's dad is extremely intuitive. And he came up to me and he said, hey, did you know that your back is not straight? And that, you're walking kind of crooked, and do you have back pain? Like, he was asking me that. And literally, I remember my whole face lit up and I was like, thank you so much for saying that, because I've been trying to explain this to so many people and nobody thinks that there's anything wrong with me. And he's like, yeah, there's some work that you might have to get done because he's like, I noticed this about you. And I was like, I literally noticed this too. And nobody believes me. Nobody says anything. And so I do remember that it took a few years for me to really understand what this was. And eventually the pain went away on its own. But I actually went to a Reiki healer and he had told me that, and this is actually Bobby Sullivan, he's also a Reiki healer. He had told me, hey, did you know that your hips are crooked? And the doctor won't be able to see that. And he does a lot of craniosacral work and a lot of work with the physical body. So he was like, yeah, nobody's going to be able to see that, but I can see that. And he was validating me. But the thing was that I never told him. So for him, he was like, yeah, for this type of issue, we're going to have to literally take a holistic approach, right? And we're going to have to see, how did this actually happen to you? How did this actually change your whole body, the energy of your body?
Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of times holistic, if we look at it from the definition point of view, holistic itself means the belief that there's parts of something that are interconnected that creates the whole. So that's why it's really important to understand that, like you said, everything is connected, the mind, body, and soul. So when you are going through certain things in your life, it actually affects you either physically, mentally, or spiritually. We kind of covered this a little bit in the previous episodes too, but to take a holistic approach is to basically understand what is the root issue. Right. Instead of what a lot of pharmaceutical companies and doctors do is they give you a band-aid to put a patch on. It is a treatment, but holistic health is taking the root cause to find a cure. You find a cure when you find what was causing it in the first place, right. Cause and effect. And so you said, carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, your back, that's what was causing, your back problems. For me, similarly, I have a lot of back problems too, a lot. Even till today, I still have it. And I feel some things are just inevitable when you're a healer, because you just naturally carry people's emotions, and that's something you have to learn how to release over time. Yeah. To continuously heal yourself, because healing is an endless journey. But a lot of times you also have to think about family genetics. Epigenetics is a really big thing that not a lot of people talk about enough too, because it could be ancestral traumas that are passed down that cause you to have these physical health symptoms. That's why they have genetics, right? Health genetics. For my family personally, we have gout that runs in the family, and I also had gout too for a girl, which is something that not a lot of girls have. But I realized this had to do with our ancestral fears regarding fear of stability. So when you are not stable, when you don't have a foundation, you have a fear of stability, where is your feet, right? Your feet is your root chakra. Your feet is what grounds you to the physical. And that's why we were having feet pain. And so that's why, like Paris said, a lot of times when you have physical symptoms that you are feeling, try to look into like the deeper meaning behind it. Like what is it that's causing you to feel these physical symptoms, and how can you find a cure for it instead of a treatment like a band-aid. And that's what a lot of pharmaceutical medicine does. Holistic medicine is actually described as just the least invasive form of healing. And that's the difference, is that holistic medicine and healing, it doesn't invade other parts of your health. Whereas like with pharmaceutical medicine, you can often find that it does put a band-aid, but it also comes at the cost of other side effects,
Yes.
like these, what are like narcotics, these opioids that are used for like pain relievers, like very like hardcore drugs for like pain relief, right? It comes with like, side effects of like, I don't know, drowsiness, right? A lot of times people feel numbed. They literally can't even feel anymore. And so like, what is the point of, numbing your senses, right?
Right. And I've had people, who've had asked me, like, how do I get into holistic medicine? Because, my whole life I've been taking pills for anxiety and depression, and I don't even think it's actually working. And that's the thing, is like you said, it's because all it's doing is just numbing it so that you don't actually have to feel it. But then where does it go from there? Like, what are you learning? What are you
Yes.
taking in?
And a lot of times these medications become addictive. And that's why we see that in the US, we have very high rates of addiction. And they stem from these opioids, these pain relievers, these narcotics that are prescribed to us from, our pharmaceutical companies, which is big pharma, like big companies.
Right.
But before we get there, I wanted to like add a little bit to holistic, medicine, is that like you said, it is the root of medicine. It is healing through nature. And it's also understanding that we are one with nature. As human beings, we are part of nature. So what better way to heal ourselves than to heal through nature? Because a lot of times we don't understand how intelligent our body is. Our bodies have so much wisdom. They are able to heal itself as long as we give it the environment and the right resources for it to do so. Cut out, a lot of these chemicals and a lot of these things that you're putting into your body, and see how much your body can heal itself. It is incredible. And also, they do say that healthcare oftentimes start with prevention. How can you prevent yourself from getting like that in the first place, right? It's to live a healthy lifestyle, to be healthy. A lot of times when we have imbalances in our life, whether it's social factors, mental, emotional, physical, these all play a role into our health. And when one is out of balance, we will see physical symptoms start to show up, or even spiritual. I kind of wanted to like add a little bit more to like the different like forms of holistic health too. You talked a little bit about naturopathic medicine, but there's also like Chinese medicine, which is more herbalism. These forms of medication have been like around for so long, like so long, and they are ancient. And like you said, how did they even find these herbal medication to know that it can help us in certain areas of our life, right? And I will say, from a spiritual perspective, some people have gifts where they are gifted with medicine guides, herbal medicine guides that will teach you different plants and different like sort of like herbs that you can utilize to heal. And these people are often called the medicine man or the medicine woman. And they are also known as our shamans. So this is why shamanism plays a really big role in a healing modality too for holistic health. So then moving into pharmaceuticals, I'm sure you've done a lot of studies in this in your holistic health studies. So what is something that you can like point out for us in terms of like the pharmaceutical industry?
To be honest with you guys, we don't dive too deeply into that stuff because it's very controversial. And the thing is that you don't want to dive into this stuff because we don't want to be biased. Of course, like schools, they don't want to be biased either, because this is the type of stuff where, pharmaceutical medicine can help people too. So the thing is that I don't want to say that, it's horrible, it doesn't help anyone, because sometimes it is needed. It's definitely needed when it's needed. However, when we talk about pharmaceutical things, it can also become very conspiracy based. It can also become very political. It can be very controversial. And people don't really know how to talk about it, right? Because the thing is that everybody has a perspective and view and bias on it. So that's why we don't talk a lot about it in school, because the thing is that we're not truly focused on pharmaceutical medicine. We're focused on holistic health. One thing about the world that we live in is that a lot of us, we want to talk about prevention for sickness, and a lot of us will go and get certain vaccines and take certain medications and things to make ourselves preventative from certain diseases. I don't want to say that, sickness is good, but it is good to a certain extent, where your body becomes sick so that it can learn how to be stronger. It learns how to fight it off so that later you don't have to get sick again. Not everybody is the same. I can't speak for everyone, but I will say that as far as vaccines and my own personal thought on it, it's hard to ingest something like when you're just a test subject itself. A lot of us don't understand this because we just live in a society where the government is forcing orders on people. I will say that we are shifting a lot in holistic medicine, especially during this time, because a lot of people are, going through spiritual awakening. Everybody's evolving. We're going through a whole revolution. But with pharmaceutical healthcare, there are certain things, certain drugs and medicines that are used to, like you said, people become addicted. And they say that it's essential, of course, for preventing or treating diseases. And it's kind of just one of those things like taking a pill, taking a syrup. The thing is that it doesn't really go through that root cause. It doesn't really fix the issue. It's more of like a temporary fix, I feel like. And that's my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, because a lot of times doctors will tell you they don't have a cure, but they have a treatment.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And and at the same time, like, I don't expect anybody to find a cure for everything. But at the end of the day, we're very fast-paced humans, especially when we have technology now. Everybody wants instant gratification. They want everything to happen fast and quick. They want a quick recovery. They want everything to, like, just be over with, within 1 week. Like, take this pill for 5 days, you'll be fine.
Yeah, but a lot of times people don't really care for a cure too. They just want that pain to go away.
Right.
And so that's what, pharmaceuticals can do for you, is like to give you a band-aid to cover up the wound. But you won't be curing, the root cause, and you will have to continue using it to feel better in a sense too.
Yes.
But it's interesting because a lot of times, like you said, it is a very controversial topic, but I do question myself too, like why do we use like chemicals to help ourselves when it's not natural for our bodies? Because like the word pharmaceutical itself, I was doing some research on this. So the word pharmaceutical itself is actually a compound that is manufactured to use as a medicinal drug. Okay, this is a manufactured drug, of course. And it's interesting because the National Institute of Health refers to pharmaceutical industries as a segment of business that is devoted to the design, development, and manufacture of chemical products. So we are not putting like natural things in our body now. We are putting chemicals that are lab created, that we don't even know where it's been derived from. And we just trust that it's going to help treat us and, help us with our pain in some way. But have we ever thought to like stop and reflect on if these things are invasive to our bodies? Is where, like holistic health comes from. Holistic health is like, taking another perspective, like, hey, like that's not healthy for your body. Like, don't put that in your body because it's actually toxic.
Right.
On top of that, like, these medicines that have been used in the pharmaceutical companies, they've been tested, right? But a lot of times they test it on animals. And I mean, there's a lot to it too, but I think like overall, like just in general, if these pharmaceutical drugs were derived from plant medicine in the first place, why can't we just continue to use plant medicine instead of trying to alternate it into a chemical compound so that it can be mass produced?
Right. And the thing with that is that because it makes a lot of revenue. So
Exactly.
why we say big pharma is because it literally makes all the money in the world. And this is like why we have a lot of issues. And I do also want to put a disclaimer out there too. Like, I don't even want to be super biased with holistic medicine too, because sometimes we learn this in schools that holistic medicine, there are cons to it too. You have to be very, very careful with this type of medicine as well, because not every single medicine or plant medicine is going to be good for you. You have
Yes.
to really do your research and you have to really understand to what extent is this plant medicine going to help you, the same way as a pharmaceutical medicine where we talk about different chemicals that are lab created and also used on animals, right? Or
Exactly.
rats. So the thing is like with the whole big pharma, so this is something that is really coming out now, guys. They fund this huge pharmaceutical companies, right? Like everything is big. Like now we are like the puppets now. And we are also the guinea pigs. We get to do everything that they ask us to. Just like even during the COVID times, like yes, we were all in lockdown. Everybody had to get vaccinated. Everybody had to like follow the rules, right? But that's the thing. Now we're talking about survival of the fittest. So who did get it? And if you did get it, it's not a big deal. I mean, I personally, I did get it. I did get vaccinated.
Yeah, because it came to a point where we were controlled. No one was able to get away from it unless it was like a valid reason, right?
Right.
But it's very interesting because the more you look deeper into it, it's questionable because how come the CEOs of these vaccines who created these vaccines didn't get it themselves and they didn't give it to their families either? So it makes you
Exactly.
kind of think like, oh, like, like it's kind of like those folk tales where it's like, oh, like here, take this, but I'm not gonna take it.
Right.
It's like here, it's like a human experiment, like you said.
Exactly.
Try it and see how it affects you, but I'm not gonna do it first.
And that's not something that they're going to tell us too. And that's why I'm saying it's like that's why we need to wake up as a society. And that's why you are seeing right now, we're literally living as we speak in a moment where people are fighting back now. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to understand certain things that are happening. And one thing about this big pharma is that they're taking over farms. Okay, we're talking about farmlands that have freshly grown food, and they're spraying chemicals all over our food, all over our dirt. I will tell you, like, almost we say that things are organic, but we don't know if they're 100% organic because of how much power that they have to spray these,
In the
fields.
air.
Yes.
And especially with the air that travels, like wind, like chemicals, pesticides that travel. So that's why they do say technically organic food is not organic because,
Right.
it's questionable, like the environment it's in, if it's nearby other things that are pesticide treated. But I mean, like there is a lot of questions to be asked and to be raised in our food industry too, especially with the FDA. A lot of the stuff on our shelves are filled with chemicals, bioengineered, and it literally says on the packages that it can be linked to cancer. But,
Yes.
It's okay for us to have it on the shelves to like purchase and eat for our children and ourselves.
And they're different from other countries in the world. Like you'll find the same like type of branding, the same type of thing, but not the same ingredients. You're going to find different ingredients in other parts of the world. And that's the thing is that, wow, guys, like we don't realize this, but the food that we eat plays a huge role in our mind control. It plays a huge role in our vibration and every single thing that affects us physically and energetically. That's the number one thing I realized though for myself personally is that the food that I was eating back then versus now, I was a completely different vibration. And it was having to change the diet, having to change the type of food that I was eating because food holds vibration. And we talk about processed foods that are just like made and we don't even know what they're made of, meats that are just like what did they put in there? Like we don't know. Same thing with like even our, sad to say, our vegetables that are sprayed with so many chemicals. And that's why it's important in the future that we can grow our own food and we can actually become self-sufficient.
It literally starts with the root cause of what you put into your body. And what you put into your body will reflect on the outside, your health, your physical health. And from there on, you get to decide, like, do you want to take a natural approach to healing or a more like medicinal, like pharmaceutical based approach to healing. But, like overall, I would say like the cheapest route is to just be healthy. Take care of your health now, because health is literally wealth. Literally, like if you don't have a healthy vessel, you will not be wealthy. You will not be able to enjoy what comes with life. And so, as much as like pharmaceutical medicine is needed in certain points of life, it is a very invasive thing to our bodies as well that could, be detrimental to our overall life expectancy. So just like, food for thought to like consider, because I know these are things that are more of like a self-consciousness level, like self-awareness of having, that not a lot of people think about too.
And I think a lot of people, they look at the healthy lifestyle and they're like, it's so expensive, but so is your illness.
Yes.
So just know that, and it's just a perspective change, because I don't honestly know why we live in a world where healthy food is more expensive than, processed and really bad foods for our bodies. But at the end of the day, what's really expensive is going to be that medical bill,
Yes.
or that prescription, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, your health is number one. Like you said, health is wealth. So just know that we talk about like things are expensive. But for me, like I remember back then we actually had this conversation.
Yeah.
And I remember when you were like, oh my God, those strawberries are like $8. And I was like, honestly, I don't care if I pay $3 more for these strawberries, because the other strawberries, like, I don't know where they've been at, you know?
Yeah, and like we always come back to this thing too, like, yeah, like technically organic isn't fully organic, but as long as we know that it's not directly sprayed, it's more than enough,
Right.
But yeah, like let us know like what kind of route to healing you guys are considering for your journey, more holistic or more pharmaceutical. We definitely understand both perspectives, both sides, but yeah, I just believe that overall, just take care of your health and do what works for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on our social media pages. Thanks.
Bye.